Now that we have covered how to make tables, let's talk about some principles of table design. That is, some things you should think about when deciding which columns will go into which tables. The first and most fundamental is the idea of avoiding redundant data. Redundant data is what we call it when you're storing the same data multiple times or in multiple places. This wastes space and can lead to slowdown or even data inaccuracies if one gets updated and the other does not. Here's an example of redundant data. We are storing Dave's name, address, and email multiple times, which wastes space and makes keeping it up to date difficult. The second thing to think about is how the data will connect and include what's necessary to connect them. We call these keys. You already saw how we set an ID to be a primary key, and that's the primary way that data is going to be connected to other tables. So what does that look like? Well, let's try and fix our table here. First, to avoid redundant data, we keep info about the person in its own table with the primary key of ID. Next, we create the table for purchases. Notice the column on the right called Person ID. It stores the information needed to identify the correct person. We call these foreign keys, and it allows this data to be connected back to the primary key in the person table. Our last guideline is related to the other two, and that is that you need to think about what you're going to do with the data and how you're going to want to view it. This will help you to determine which tables need to connect to each other and which may be fine on their own. An important part of this process that we haven't currently covered is what happens when different people have different needs. This is handled through a combination of users and permissions. There are three main uses of users and permissions. First, it allows you to determine what actions a person can take on a database. You may not want everyone who can see the data also being able to enter new data or update it. The four primary permissions are read, write, update, and delete, and they allow a user to do exactly what you would expect. Next, you may want some people to be able to access some of your data, but not all of it. This is common, especially if you have sensitive information in some tables, but that's okay because permissions can be set per table, so you can choose to allow access only to what you want that user to have. And finally, a user can also be set so that they can only access information if they are making the connection from a specific place. So you could only allow access from your office, or only allow connections from other servers that you own. This greatly helps with security. Let's quickly go over how to create new users. First, select the database you want that user for. We did person over here, so I'll check that one. Go over here to privileges. That'll show you the users that currently have privileges. We can choose to add a new account. Select the username. I'll name mine Justin. A percent means that you can connect from anywhere. If you have a specific location, you'll need to enter its IP. You can have a password, which you'd need to retype, but it'll also allow you to generate a random one for extra security, and we're going to do that. You can see that it's selected to grant privileges just for this table. If you wanted it everywhere, you could check here. Now, all of these here on the right are pretty much things you're only going to want your server administrator to have, but for generic users, you're only going to be using data permissions. Select, insert, update, delete. File also helps if you have files that may be uploaded or downloaded. But we'll give this particular user select and update. Next, click Go. And that was created. I've now added a new user. So if we go back to person and go back to privileges, you can see the new user, Justin, has been added. For Workbench, to add a new user, all you have to do is select the table, go to Server, Users and Privileges, Add Account, select the name. You can see we've already used Justin from the one we added in PHP MyAdmin a moment ago. So for now, I'll just name it New Justin. We're going to leave it at %. It doesn't generate a password, so I'll have to make up one, and I'll use one that I choose to use, even though it thinks it's weak. It's only for a demonstration after all. We click Apply, and you can see New Justin has been added. Now you can go over to schema privilege, choose to add an entry. You can choose whether you want this person to have access for all the databases or just a selected one. We're going to select customers since that's the one we created here. Click OK, and then we can select our select, insert, update, and delete privileges that we normally have for our users. Click apply, and there you have it. We have a new user with the permissions we want. Next time, we will go over importing and exporting data. This has been brought to you by CreativeOnlineSchool.com.